Hey, how's it going? Seth here from REtipster. I wanted to take a minute to show you some examples of creative filtering combinations you can use with the land portal to really isolate and contact the right people while avoiding the wrong ones who you don't even want to talk to and waste your time on in the first place. The name of the game here is not to spend money to reach everyone, but you want to spend less money and reach the right people. The first step to doing this is just understanding what all the filters are and what they even mean and why they're important. I've got a separate video explaining all of that. But once you have a good handle on that, you got to use your own creativity to think, given who I'm trying to contact, how can I most effectively use these filters so that I'm only contacting the people that I actually want to reach and do business with? If you can understand how to do this effectively, it's not just going to save you money. It's going to save you a lot of wasted time and burnout. And the real goal behind this exercise is not to give you like an exact recipe to follow, although you can do that if you want. The real goal here is just to help you get your own creative engines running. Because when you understand which levers you can pull and why they matter, this will probably help you think of your own creative list you can create on your own depending on who you're trying to target. And before we get started, if you want to sign up for the land portal and follow along with what I'm doing and try this yourself to see if it works, you can do that at retipster.com/land portal. That's the REtipster affiliate link. If you sign up through that link and sign up for the advanced plan, you'll get 1,000 free exports added to your account. I'll have a link to that beneath this video if you want to click through that link and help yourself and help us out. And by the way, there's a lot more beyond what I'm showing you here in this video. I'm going to include a link to a blog post beneath this video where you can go check out a lot more ideas on different combinations you can use to find certain types of property owners. Be sure to check that out and you can get a lot more examples of this beyond what I'm showing you here. So to kick this off, once you're in the land portal, you just have to go up here to filters and it's going to pop out this window to the left. And whenever we're doing this, we got to start by defining the state and the county where we're looking. In this example, I'm just going to pick Alabama and we'll pick Baldwin County. And there's nothing special about this. I'm just picking a random state and county here. And with some of these examples, you don't even need to use that many filters. You just have to use the right ones. So as land investors, a lot of times the people that we end up selling our vacant lots to end up being builders. What if there was a way that you could pretty quickly figure out who are all these builders in the local area? You could do a Google search and look for builders in Baldwin County, Alabama. But another way to really drill down to figure out who these people are is to just understand what is the profile of a typical builder. One way we can do this is, first of all, we want to just find the vacant lots. One way to find the vacant lots is just to check this box that says vacant lots. This is where it's going to identify properties that don't have structures on them. And then we're going to go down here to the very bottom and we want to only include the corporate owned properties. A lot of land investors will try to exclude the corporate owned properties, but we're going to only include those because most builders have a corporation. And then we're also going to go over here and we're going to say we only want property owners who have at least 5 vacant lots or more. And there's nothing magical about 5. You could say 6, you could say 4, but a lot of builders in most markets, if they're active builders, will own at least 5 properties that they're either actively building on or that they're going to build on soon. And they're always out there buying more land. In a lot of cases, if they're building a spec home, they own the land. You can also go over here and say, we want these property owners to be ones who have just bought the property within the past couple of years. And in the land portal, you can isolate this by the year. So I'm currently recording this in mid to late 2025. And we could say, hey, they bought the property in 2024 or 2025. Or I could even go back as far as 2023 if I wanted to. Further back you go, the more you'll get on your list. We just want to know that they didn't buy this thing like 5 or 10 years ago and they're just sitting on it. Like they bought it pretty recently because they want to build on the thing. I'm going to change this to 24. And by default, it's going to include unknown sales dates. I'm going to uncheck that. We want to be sure about when these things were purchased because this filter matters. And then another filter here that is unique to the land portal. I don't know of any other data services out there that can do this. We want to only see properties that have some degree of buildability to them. And some of this depends on the size of the property. Say if it's like a 20-acre property, then you could get away with just 10% of it being buildable. Or if it's a half-acre property, you'd probably want most of it to be buildable. So you don't have to use this, but you can if you want to. I'll go ahead and put, I don't know, 20% in here. If any of these things were optional, I might say this one, but I'm just going to throw that in there and see what happens. And now we're going to click apply. and we've got 439 on here. If we click on this, it'll show us a map. We can just start hovering on these things and it will tell us who these owners are. Now remember, one of the filters we put on here were only property owners that own 5 or more properties. So some of them will probably show up more than once on here. And if we just hover around long enough, we can start to find these builders. Look, we've got Adams Homes, Inc. We've got Maxwell Construction Company, Sundance Gardens and Homes, River Oaks Development, Green Heron Timber LLC. That's another thing to keep in mind is that you're not going to only see builders. You're just going to see a lot of builders on here. You'll find timber companies. You'll probably find mortgage lenders too. But again, if you want to just try to find as many builders as you can in one place, this is one way to do that. And if you're ever doing this and you're not seeing enough builders, you could always open up your list a little bit. Maybe do property owners that have 3 or more properties, or forget the buildability thing. Just take some of those filters off and you'll get more results. And the cool thing is, say we want to reach out to this builder and say, hey, do you want to buy my property? We can just select the property itself. And once we're here at a property, we can see they own 3 of them here. Looks like actually a bunch of them right there. All we'd have to do is go over here and skip trace them. Just hit this skip trace button and it's going to do a single skip trace on only this property owner. We can add their email addresses too if we want. We'll confirm this. And if the system is able to, it's not always able to, but if it can, it will find any phone numbers associated with this owner and any email addresses. And we could just call them up right now. Even if it can't find that, we can always use their mailing address information and send them a letter if we want. So it looks like in this case, we've got an owner named Maria. We've got 2 different phone numbers, no email addresses, but this is the fastest way I know of. If you find a property owner and you want to get a hold of them ASAP, right here, you skip trace them in the land portal. You got the contact information. I can call them, have them on the phone within 10 seconds from now. It could be a good way to strike up a conversation and see if they have properties you can buy, or better yet, if they want to buy properties that are in your inventory, especially if you're working in this same county and you've got properties that probably fit the criteria of the other ones they already own. Now, moving on over here, let's look at some other creative ideas. So we're going to go ahead and clear out these filters. So another interesting thing you could do as a land investor, and I don't know a ton of them that do this. Most land investors will go out of their way to avoid landlocked properties, properties with no road access, because if there's no road access, you can't get to them, which means you can't use them. But some land investors go out of their way specifically to target landlocked properties. And not just any landlocked property, but usually ones that are pretty large in size, so that if they can get an easement, then suddenly the value of that landlocked property goes way up, especially if it's a lot of land, like a 40-acre parcel that's landlocked. If you can get legal access to that, you just made that property get a lot more valuable. And usually with landlocked properties, you can buy them for a very, very, very low price, and rightfully so, because it's not very usable. But again, getting that easement, if you can do it, makes it a lot more usable. Let's pretend for a moment we're looking for these landlocked properties. How do we find only those and nothing else? Because we're looking to buy these things for a steal. Well, you could do the same kind of thing up here. Let's say go back to Alabama. In this case, we can actually select multiple counties. If we wanted to, we could look in the entire state. I'm just going to pick a handful of counties here. And the reason I'm doing this is because I might not find that many landlocked properties in one county. But if I'm looking statewide or in a certain section of the state, I could probably find a lot more. And again, we're not just looking for any landlocked property. We're looking for big landlocked properties. This is another unique filter to the land portal. It's a pretty nice filter in that you can say, we only want the properties that are or are not landlocked. Almost all the time, I'm saying no to this, but for this example, I'm going to say yes, because I'm trying to target these landlocked properties. And not just that, we also want to say, how big are these properties? So we're going to go up here to acres, and we're going to say at least 40 acres and up. So we'll say 40 to some crazy high number just to make sure we're getting everything that's over 40 acres in size. And we're also going to say vacant lots. We'll check that box up there as well. We're going to click apply, and it's going to show us how many results are in these counties that we selected in Alabama. And there we go. That's a lot. I'm not sure if I even want that many. So at this point, what I could do, I could go ahead and contact all of them, but I could also go up here and remove some of these counties if I wanted to. I could make this more restrictive by saying, let's go 80 acres and up. There's all kinds of different ways I can make the box narrower if I want. Let's try 80 acres and up, see how many that leaves us with. Okay, so looks like it chopped it in half. Now let's click on this and let's go see how many different parcels we've got. We can see the different clusters here in the counties that we selected. And let's just zoom in on some of these to see what these things look like. All these gray check marks are the properties we're looking at. And if we zoom in here, now we can see these ones with the check marks are pretty clearly landlocked. They don't have road access to them. And similar thing, when I click on these things, if I want, I can skip trace it right here, find the person's phone number, email address if I have it, or I could just take their mailing address without skip tracing them and send them a letter that way. And something you'll find, at least in this part of the country, when you're filtering it like this, is there's a lot of timber companies that own a ton of land like this that's landlocked, and they may or may not be looking to sell it. Maybe it depends on if they just recently harvested the timber or not, because that's usually the actual value they're going after, not necessarily the land. The interesting thing, once you get a list like this, where each of the leads is pretty high value, like it represents a lot of money if you can do a deal with one of these things and establish an easement there. And if that list is fairly small, you can actually justify spending a lot of money or putting a lot of effort into contacting each one of these things. You're not necessarily playing the numbers game anymore because there's a smaller finite number of leads when the list is small and when the leads are high value, especially if you have knowledge that you know how to get an easement there, when maybe the current owner isn't even thinking that way. They don't care about that. They just want the timber. Just another thing to think about. Now, let's say we're looking to buy properties that have a slope and a nice view that we could build a home on. Now, a lot of times land investors, especially if they're looking for buildable land, slope is not necessarily something they want to see. A little bit of slope is okay, but a really steep slope can spell a lot of trouble, not because it's not buildable, but because it's expensive to build on that property. It's expensive to engineer it and get the materials to put a residence there that's not going to fall apart. But in some cases, a property with a steep slope can actually be a desirable thing if the buyer and the builder is looking to build a luxury product. And if that property has an amazing view. I mean, people could pay a lot just because of the view and overlook the faults of the slope issue and pay to build on that slope simply because that view is there. This is not something that an economical home builder is going to try to do. It's something that a luxury home builder is going to try to do. And with every data service out there, except for the land portal, you can't really see the slope or filter your list based on what the slope is. But that's one of the unique things that the land portal has. It can see the slope, and you can filter your list that way. I've got a whole separate video explaining the slope issue and how to understand that, but I'm just going to show you really quick how we could filter by these high-end luxury lots for luxury builds with a view. So I'm going to go ahead and let's pick a county where we know there's a lot of topography and ups and downs to it. So I can go over here to Colorado, and let's go to Eagle County. We're looking for vacant lots. And when it comes down here to acres, so these properties don't need to be nearly as big as the landlocked ones we were just looking for. It just has to be big enough to build a house. So we might put like 0.25. That's a little on the low end, but it could technically work up to maybe 10 acres in size. Just have a nice range there. And then down here where it says slope percentage, it's kind of up to you how you want to do this, but essentially you can define what percentage of the property has what percentage of slope. Usually when you start getting over 5% slope, that's when it becomes more and more challenging to build. Below 5% is considered fairly easy to deal with. And by default, the land portal has set this up with the assumption that you don't necessarily want a slope. So that's why it's saying under, not over. So another way you could also do this is go down here to the buildability total percentage. And when they say buildability, what they're really talking about here is the slope. It's saying if you require 10% or more of the land to be buildable, enter 10%. So we could say like 0% if we want the whole thing to have a really steep slope, or 25%. Just to drive home the point that like, we're okay with slope challenges. We want the slopes. So let's just throw that in there, see what happens, and see what kind of results come back. All right, so we've got 869. Let's try 10%, see if that brings it down at all. Oh, see, it actually brings it up because we're including more properties that are not buildable. Let's just go ahead and take a look at some of these things and see what comes up. So we're going all the way over to Colorado. Go ahead and zoom in on some of these. This looks like a pretty slopey area. View this one. Okay, now we're going to turn on this 3D view, and we can kind of see this one doesn't actually look that bad. If we go out here, we can really get a better idea for how steep some of these things are. Zoom in on this one here. So like this is an example of a property that definitely has some slope issues. I can see it just by looking here. And if we turn on the contour lines, we can really get a good view for those slope elevations right there. We can see other ones over here that are closer to the river. And, keep in mind, some of these things, they really aren't buildable, not just because of the slope issue, but maybe they're in a flood zone too, or maybe the municipality says, no, you can't build here. But the point is, this is pointing out a lot of those red-headed stepchild properties that are too steep that most people have overlooked because they're so steep. But if it's in the right area and you find the right kind of luxury home builder, they may love the slope as long as there's a nice view to it. It's just another way to uncover opportunities that most people will overlook, but it could be exactly what you want, and you can filter it that way in the land portal because they give you these options of doing that. So let's check out another example over here. So something I tried to do years ago, and I eventually gave up on it because I didn't know how to do it very effectively, was find and buy farmland as an investment. Farmland is very different than flipping a vacant residential lot because farmland, especially if it's tillable and if it's actively being leased to a farmer, farmland is making money for the owner. So they have no real reason to sell it at a huge discount. Also because farmland takes basically no maintenance from the owner. It's the person leasing it. They do all the work. But what if you wanted to find all of the farmland in a given county or even an entire state and try to find the best possible deals there, either to buy it, or maybe you are a farmer and you want to lease that farmland. How could you find those properties out there? Well, you just find one of the states and counties you want to do this in. So we could go over here to Iowa or Illinois, and we will try a county like Lucas that's got a lot of farmland in it. I mean, who am I kidding? A lot of Iowa has farmland in it. And in this case, we could keep vacant lots checked, but that's actually not even that critical. We're just looking for large tracts of farmland. Maybe there's a house or a barn on it. That's okay too. And we can find the farmland by going down here to land use, and we're going to type out land and find everything we can find here that says farm or rangeland for grazing, or we could do vacant land general, even rural agricultural vacant land, maybe even recreational land if we want. And this isn't the only filter we're going to use. We're also going to go up here to acres, and we're going to say 40 to 640 acres. And another thing we're going to do over here is we're going to look for the out-of-state owners. We want the people who have a higher likelihood of being a little bit disinterested in the property. So they don't see it every day. They don't necessarily care that much about it. It's not like it's in their backyard. We're going to say yes to the out-of-state owner. And when we come down here to improvement value, so if we wanted to only find the properties with no structures on them, ideally we could say 0 to 0. So there's no improvements on the property. It's just land. And another thing we can do if we're looking for more motivated sellers is find people who bought the property kind of a long time ago. So they didn't just buy the thing last year or even 3 years ago or even 5 years ago. We could say only the people who bought it maybe 10 or more years ago. And there's no magic number on this, but the point is they didn't just buy the thing. So we're going to say anywhere from 1900 to 2015, just to make sure that we're only including the ones that were transacted over 10 years ago. And then another little thing you could do here, I've actually never tried this myself, but I have heard this from people in the business, that if you want an actual deal on farmland, again, a lot of farmland owners might not necessarily be interested in selling because it doesn't take much work and it's making the money. But sometimes an opportunity to acquire farmland is when possibly the farmland owner has just died and now it's being passed on to their kids, and their kids don't really care about it. And a lot of times when properties are passed down to their kids like this, the way that's happening is through a trust. So something you could do is try to go out of your way to include property owners with the word trust in it. I don't know, just an idea. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but we'll give it a try. Now let's apply these filters, see how many results we get. And it looks like we've got 0 results. So this happens sometimes. It basically just means our filters are too restrictive. We've filtered out every possible option. So what we're going to do is go up here and we're going to go about this a different way. Instead of trying to filter it by this, because sometimes counties don't do a great job of classifying their own land. If you try to sort it by use, it just doesn't compute because they didn't put that information in there. So we're going to totally get rid of those land uses. And instead, we're going to sort this only by the acreage. We're just going to assume if it's 40 to 640 acres, there's a good chance it's farmland. I mean, this is Lucas County, Iowa. After all, there's a lot of farmland there. And we're just going to make that assumption. We'll apply it again, see if anything good comes up here. Still got 0. So this could actually be an issue with Lucas County, Iowa. I've actually never worked there, but it's possible that their county data just isn't that good. There's not enough information information to pull to make the kind of list we're trying to do. So what I'm going to do here is select a bunch of different counties in Iowa. And we're going to go back down here and we're going to add trust back here to this. And we will include that. And we might try to add these land uses back, but first I'm going to do a count just to see if this pulls in any results. Okay, we definitely got some results. 305. If we go over here, it'll show us where those properties are. Now we can start zooming in on these things and understanding, is this actually what we wanted? Is this fit the profile of the properties we were looking for? Family trust. Okay, that's good. It's including that trust in there. Revocable living trust. We can zoom in on these things. As we get closer, we'll start to see those parcel lines appearing a little bit better. And you can just keep going with this until you get the right profile of the type of property you're looking for. Let me show you one more. And by the way, there's a lot more beyond what I'm showing you here in this video. I'm going to include a link to a blog post beneath this video where you can go check out a lot more ideas on different combinations you can use to find certain types of property owners. Be sure to check that out and you can get a lot more examples of this beyond what I'm showing you here. But in this last example, we'll go back here to the filters, go ahead and clear these out, start over from scratch. Okay, so in this last example here, I want to show you a very niche type of property and how we can find it. This was something I spent a lot of time investigating last year, and that was industrial outdoor storage or outdoor semi-truck parking lots. These are in a lot of ways similar to a self-storage facility, but it's just basically an outdoor storage yard for semi-trucks. And a lot of times when you develop these things, you could start with vacant land, but an easier way to do it is to find an existing property that's zoned commercial or industrial, and it's already being used for something that involves semi-trucks on the property. For example, like a mechanic shop or a small industrial building that just happens to have a lot of land or a big parking lot already there. And you can just repurpose it for outdoor semi-truck parking. So knowing this, we can get really clear with the land portal to figure out where these properties are. So I'm going to show you how I would do this. We're going to start off with a county and a state where I would want to develop one of these things. In this case, I'm going to go to Muskegon County, which is a fairly industrialized little city here. And we can see we've got a highway coming in over here and it's going down to the south. It's also going up here up north. And there's this other state highway over here. And what we can do is open up the filters and we are going to start by not even defining the state and county. We're just going to start by drawing a polygon. This is a really cool way to use the polygon tool because when we're talking about a semi-truck parking lot, one of the key attributes that we want to see here is we want the property to be fairly close to a major highway because semi-trucks always need to get quick, easy access to these highways. So what we're going to do is use the polygon tool to draw a polygon around these major highways. Ideally, we would want to be within less than a mile from that highway, and really the closer the better. So we're going to start by drawing a polygon like this, and we can go up here, go across. You can kind of see how I'm basically just outlining this highway here, or the different highways that we're trying to get around. I'll speed this up a little bit just so you can get the point. Now, one thing I have found in my past experience, whenever I'm using these kind of polygon tools, is that you want to be careful not to cross over into more than one county, because when you go to more than one county, now you're relying on different databases and it can kind of jumble things up. So when you're doing this approach, try to keep it within the same county. So these could be vacant lots, but they don't need to be. So I'm not going to check this. And one thing I know about outdoor semi-truck parking lots is that at a bare minimum, you want it to be 3 or 4 acres or larger. So I'm going to say no smaller than 4 acres up to maybe 50 acres in size. When it comes to land use, so we're going to look for pretty much all things industrial and commercial. So we're going to select as many of these as I can. And also just the fact that I'm drawing this polygon around the highway means a lot of these properties are probably going to be commercial and industrial anyway. That just tends to be a lot of times what's near highways, but helps to specify it when you can. Now, another really cool thing about this particular type of use is that flood zones are actually not a huge problem, because the reason we're buying this property is not because of its buildability or because of any buildings on it. What we really want it for is so that we can safely park semi-trucks. And given that that's our use, it's actually not a huge deal if there's a little bit of flooding or if it's in the 500 or even 100-year floodplain. So when it comes down here to maximum FEMA coverage, I'm going to say 100%. that whole thing can be in flood zone. I don't really care. And we can go down here to building square feet. So again, you can develop these things from the ground up from vacant land if you want to, but a lot of times in many municipalities, something I've learned is that if you try to do that, they're going to force you to put some kind of building on the property anyway, just because that allows them to charge you more in taxes. And I don't necessarily want to spend a whole lot of money building a brand new building just so they can charge me more in taxes. So an easier way to go about this is to just find a property that already has a building, and preferably a small building. Because again, the building is not really what I want in the first place. So for that, I could say anywhere from 0 to 10,000 square feet. So not a massive building. And let's go ahead and click apply. And there we go. We got 81 results here. It'll show us where all these results are. We can click on these things and start finding out more about where these properties are, if they fit the bill. Look at this. Looks like this one already sort of is being used as a outdoor storage facility. So that could be a perfect one right there. And from here, I can either contact these individually if it's a really small list, or I can go ahead and do a normal mail campaign or cold call them or send them texts. But this just made it really quick and easy for me to figure out exactly where these properties are. And most of these are off market. In fact, if I wanted to make sure that they're off market, I can go back here and go up here to MLS filters and check this box that says for sale. But then down here, we're going to exclude active listings. So if something is for sale, we don't want it. Or we could say, yeah, include those. Or if we don't care, just uncheck the thing. But that's another little thing you can use in the land portal that you don't find in most data services out there. And the important point to make with this particular example is that I have a very clear idea of what I'm looking for. And the more clarity I have about that, the more effectively I can create this type of filtered list and get exactly the types of properties and property owners that I want, and none of the ones that I don't. So there you go. I hope that was an interesting, informative experience for you. Again, not because you have to follow any of these recipes, but just so you understand there are a lot of different ways you can mix and match these filters to get pretty specific about who you're trying to reach. If you want to give the land portal a try, just go to retipster.com/land portal. That's our affiliate link. If you sign up for the advanced plan, you'll get 1,000 free exports when you sign up, and we'll get a small commission for referring you. And again, if you want to see a lot more examples of how you can apply different types of creative filter combinations like this in the land portal, be sure to check out the blog post. I'll have a link to that beneath this video. You can get a lot more ideas and inspiration from that. Thanks again for watching. Talk to you again soon.